Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Ask the Expert session on Microsoft certification. My name is Allison Cracker, and I'm your moderator today. For those of you wondering, I'm a white female. I have brown curly hair, and I'm wearing kind of a burgundy top. I am joined by two different experts here that we will introduce in just a moment. But I wanted to go through a few housekeeping items first, just to kind of give you an understanding of how this session is going to go. We have the chat feature available for you to ask questions. You can post those anonymously, or you can use your name. It is up to you. We ask that you go through the questions and actually upvote the ones that you would like us to ask to our moderators live and our experts live. Go ahead and upvote those with a thumbs up, and our team is going to be helping to kind of curate all those questions and feed them over that we're going to be asking on camera. Some will ask verbally, and then others, we have an entire team that's going to be answering your questions over chat. We get a lot of questions in sessions like this, so we're going to do our best to answer as many as possible. If we have a ton of questions, we will definitely try to get to them as many as possible, but be patient with us and bear with us as we get through all these questions. As a reminder, please adhere to the Microsoft Code of Conduct. We'll make sure that it's posted in the chat for you. We've got it here as well. And we just make sure that we are creating an inclusive event. So with that, I want to introduce our two experts that we have with us here today. We've got Liberty Munson. She is our Director of Psychometrics at Microsoft. And then we have Sudarshan Krishnamurthy, who is also our Director of Microsoft Certifications at Microsoft. They are both great experts, and we're super excited to have them. So with that, we are going to kick it off with Sudarshan. The first question, Sudarshan, is going to go to you. And, you know, we've recently had this switch of kind of this switch and shift to role-based certifications. So Sudarshan, could you kind of walk through why we made this switch and this shift to role-based certifications and the impact on our program?
Absolutely. It's great to be here, everyone. And Allison, it's a great question to begin a conversation here. The role of the IT professional is constantly evolving. What used to be a skill in the past where IT professionals were responsible for point products, they were looking at specific products and the skill sets around those specific products. For example, if you're a security engineer, you would be looking at the skill sets that are required for endpoint protection or firewalls. So those were very point products skills that were required in the past. But what has happened now is more of the solution focus, where the IT professional needs to look at it not just from a product perspective, but an end-to-end solution that they need to manage in a very complex environment. So because of that, we have kind of made the shift to role-based certifications, where we are looking at skills that are needed for managing solutions across the IT infrastructure, and then all the skills associated with that. So that's sort of the requirement in the market, and we are constantly evaluating, looking at our role-based certifications and looking at all the new job roles that are emerging, right? So as the job roles emerge, we create a certification around it if there's enough demand and if there is a market need for it. And so shifting over to role-based certifications is really helping that IT professional to become more complete in terms of managing their solutions end to end, rather than being focused on a specific point product.
Great. That's exciting. It's been fun to be a part of this program as we've made that shift. My next question comes to Liberty. And Liberty, could you walk through, Build is a developer conference after all, and we are talking about certification. So we get this question a lot, and we've already seen it in the chat. Why should developers care about Microsoft certifications, and kind of what's in it for them?
So I love this question because my husband is a developer and he asks me this all the time. So we have these wonderful debates about the value of certification for developers. And I would say for really where certification matters is when you're starting out in a career, because it is the thing that sets you apart. Fewer people have certifications than you may realize. So if you're looking for that, what makes you different when you go to apply for a job and you send in your resume, having a certification is certainly one of those things that makes you different. In terms of your ongoing career, the value of certification is that it really demonstrates interest in continuous learning. And I think we all agree that more and more organizations are putting a high emphasis on this need and willingness and interest in pursuing additional learning opportunities. So how do you stay up to date on technology that's constantly changing? Certification is a great way to show to your manager that you do care about the future of these technologies and you're well prepared to use them on an ongoing basis.
Perfect. It's a great question. I know we get that question a lot. Sudarshan, I have the next questions for you. It's kind of similar, but could you talk about, are we reintroducing a C# certification or web development certification? And if not, can you talk through kind of how we make that decision and why?
Yeah, like I said earlier, as part of our role-based certification evolution, we are constantly evaluating all of the really in-demand job roles and making sure that we are addressing those job roles. So it's an ongoing process. It's not a once and done, right? We are constantly evaluating not only the on-demand job roles, but also the tasks and the skills that are associated with those job roles. And we do this through a process called job task analysis, JTA, as many of you might be familiar. So it's that discipline that we have around first evaluating the in-demand job roles and then the skills associated with the job roles that we are constantly doing. So with that process and with that background, we will be looking at what are the skills that are needed for developers. And if there is a C# related skill set that's relevant to a specific job role, then that's when we would go back and look at the specific certification that's already in market, or if you need to create a new certification that needs to be part of our portfolio, we would do that, and then C# would be incorporated into that specific certification. At this point in time, I don't have a specific answer for you on this is the certification that's going to have C#, but I want to assure you that Microsoft is constantly evaluating all of these job roles and also the skills associated with the job roles. So we make the right decisions for our customers, and if there is enough demand and if there is enough interest, then it'll automatically surface up, and then we'll address it as we go. So that's kind of how we operate. Yeah.
I do want to say that our Azure Developer does have C# code in it. And when you take Azure Developer, you actually get to choose between C# and Python. So we do have that certification that actually, it doesn't test on C# per se, but you have to know C# or Python to be able to answer a good number of those questions on that exam. And we are also in the early stages of doing something similar for AI engineer.
Awesome. Liberty, I'm going to kick it back to you and ask kind of a follow-up question. We're getting a lot of questions about, if someone's a .NET developer, what should be an appropriate certification for them to either maybe try for their first time or maybe something that's a little bit more advanced. Do you have a recommendation for someone who's a .NET developer?
Because we don't really have a true .NET certification, that's a hard question to answer. I think that the closest thing that I could recommend from a developer perspective would be our Azure developer. We have some developer roles in the Power Platform. Might also be another place to do some exploring. If you really are kind of just trying to figure out how to get your feet wet in our program, I would look at the fundamentals, AI fundamentals, not strictly code either, but I think gets you into would set you up for a more code-based role if you were thinking about pursuing that. And maybe even data fundamentals might be another place to look. So those would be some ones that I would check out and see if they at least can dip your toes in a little bit in the places that you'd like to see.
Perfect. Thank you. I appreciate your honesty, Liberty. So this next question is Sudarshan. Sudarshan, once again, we get this question a lot, but what certification route do you recommend for folks who work with on-prem technology stacks? And, we've noticed that a lot of our certifications are more cloud-based. So what do you recommend?
Yeah, I mean, we have seen our customers have a mix of on-prem and cloud technologies, and there's hybrid environments. So we would recommend the Azure Stack Operator certification for on-prem technologies. That's a good one if you're focused on on-prem, looking to transition to this hybrid cloud world. Or even our Windows modern desktop certification has a lot of on-prem content for on-prem Windows. So that's another certification that you should explore. And even our the database administrator certifications and some of the certifications that we are going to have in the future will have a lot of those on-prem technologies included as part of the hybrid cloud workloads. So you would think of the IT professional being the hybrid cloud administrator, where there's a little bit of on-prem workloads and a little bit of the cloud workloads. And so in those environments, you will see a lot of the on-prem content. But for now, it's the Azure Stack operator, it's the modern desktop, it's the database administrator. And maybe in the future, we'll include some of the technologies that I know all of you have been asking for, SQL Server and Windows Server 2019, right? So Windows Server 2019, we don't have a certification. We won't have a certification standalone, but it will be part of that hybrid administrator job role that I just described, right? So those are the ones that I would recommend, Allison.
Perfect. Thank you. Liberty, this next question is for you. And the question is around, Microsoft is making lots of changes and it feels like it's kind of hard to keep up. So can you walk through why we make so many changes and, kind of what are the next steps that people can do about it to stay up to date?
We are making so many changes because the technology is changing so fast. And so we are learning kind of along with you all what we need to do to better support our those people who want to be certified. So not only do we have to kind of keep a pace with what job roles are really kind of starting to emerge in industry that will help organizations be successful and help them on their digital transformation journeys. So we have to come up with the right certifications that enable that and empower them. And then on top of that, we also need to make sure that our exams and our certifications stay up to date. So we're constantly updating those as well, which I know can be particularly challenging when you're studying for one of these exams. So what we try to do is to give you as much advance notice as possible when something significant is going to change. So the best thing you can do when you're preparing for one of our exams is go back to that exam details pages pretty regularly and take a look at when we're going to tell you the exam is going to be updated. Download the skills measured document and we'll tell you explicitly what's changing and when. So don't just go there saying sign up for the exam and never go back, because odds are if you take more than 2 months between when you sign up and when you plan to take the exam is going to change. So make sure you are diligent about checking that every so often so you know what's changing and when.
Perfect. And then a follow-up question to that, for those people that are already certified, we just recently introduced certification renewals. Can you talk through certification renewal and then also kind of, Liberty, how it's conducted on our end and how we actually develop the renewal piece of it?
So we decided that we wanted to do something that was reduced friction for people to maintain their certifications. The idea here with renewal is that we want you to be invested in continuing to learn and staying up to date on these technologies. So how can we make it simple for you to do that? So what you do is you take an assessment on Learn. If you feel like you need some learning prep to go with it, we've also curated some modules based on the particular learning path and said, here's the content that you need that we think is the most important content and how the certification has changed in the last 6 months or to 1 year. And these are the things that we're going to assess you on. So, and you can take the assessment as many times as you want. You'll have a 6-month window to renew your certification. But once you renew it, your certification will be extended for another year. And we design these assessments very much like we design our exams. We have subject matter experts working and reviewing the Learn content, which is a little different than our exams because we don't have that such a tight link between the exam questions and the Learn content like we do with Cert Renewal. But they review that content and then they write questions that are aligned with it. But they're still difficult questions because it's still renewing your certification, but we've just simplified the process by delivering it through the Microsoft Learn platform.
Awesome. It's a fun rollout that we've made. It's been super fun to kind of work on this. And I'm excited for the opportunity that means for everyone to be able to renew their certifications in really a friction-free way. This next question is for Sudarshan. Sudarshan, it's a little bit of a follow-up from a previous question that I asked you, but we have some folks who are asking kind of, they know that we're in the middle of a transition on our certification program and have rolled out role-based, but it seems like there are some holes and gaps in important skill sets, and we talked about on-prem as an example. What should our audience expect to be coming in the next year or so to fill some of those gaps, and is there anything that you can tell us?
Yeah, I think we've made some very positive steps forward, right? Including introducing some of the in-demand job roles, like for security, for example, right? We introduced the security fundamentals and the SOC analyst job role for the SOC certification. And those are all very positive steps that we've taken to make sure that we are addressing the most in-demand job roles. For as far as the gaps go, that has been left from retiring all of the MCSA D&E, if that's what people are asking about. Then we've tried to do our best to kind of map what the new certification, job role-based certification equivalent would be. So I would encourage people to go check those out to make sure you can see some kind of a path forward from the last exams or last certifications that you were interested in. What you can expect going forward is for us to make more investments and be focused on the hybrid sort of job roles that I talked about earlier. We are not going to be building certifications just for the on-prem technologies. It'll be a mix of on-prem and cloud. So we'll continue to make more investments. We'll continue to look for, again, do the market research, find out which of those skill sets are in most demand and what employers are demanding, what our customers are asking for, and we'll continue to make more investments. And you will see some really good certifications come out from Microsoft, just like the security portfolio that I talked about. And there's going to be more exciting certifications coming in that space as well as other solution areas. That's what you can expect from Microsoft.
Perfect.
If I can jump in here, because security is actually a really great example. I've been at Microsoft for almost 15 years, and for a very, very long time, we said we would never create a security certification. We were never going to create such a portfolio, but we listened to what our audience was saying. We looked at the emerging job roles and we said, you know what? We need to do certification in that space. So even though we don't have something that you might be interested in today, I would say look at the security certifications and just recognize Microsoft does do this due diligence to make sure that we are meeting the market needs and where organizations really need certified individuals to be able to drive their business forward.
Great addition, Liberty. Thank you. Okay, this next one, actually, I'm going to kick it back to you, Liberty. So I love this question, and I know we get it a lot. I've asked it to you before, but can you talk through if you learned your skills through Microsoft Learn, through self-paced, free learning paths we have available? Is that enough to be able to pass the exam, or do you need additional experience in addition to that?
For fundamentals, that should be sufficient, but it may not, it should be close, right? Because for fundamentals, it's really knowledge-based questions. And so if you've done your studying, if you really understand the content that's presented on Learn, you probably are in a relatively good place to be successful. But for role-based exams, the answer is no. By design, we have intentionally said that you need to have experience to be able to pass these exams. So you're going to get questions that are true problems that Azure administrators or Azure developers have to solve in their everyday jobs. And so if you have that experience, you're one step closer to being understand what the problem is and how you need to solve it. And so then you can answer the question correctly. Even more important, we are starting to add labs to more and more of our exams. And if you just don't have that hands-on experience, you're really going to struggle in those labs. Because what the labs do is they connect you through a virtual machine to Azure, as an example, and it asks you to complete between 12 and 15 tasks in Azure. And you just have to have the experience to be able to do that. Otherwise, you're never going to be able to get through those labs. I like to say, get training, get experience, get certified. That's my advice. If you remember nothing else, remember that.
Get training, get experience, get certified. I love it. We should use that in our marketing materials, Liberty. Sudarshan, this next question is for you. This came from one of our attendees a little while back. I'm catching up here. But from a perspective of Microsoft as an employer, what weight do we give to Microsoft certification when we are making hiring decisions? And then maybe if you could also kind of dive into some of the requirements that we even have internally for certification in our employees.
Yeah, I mean, eat your own dog food, right? So we do have a program internally. We call it the Technical Skilling Initiative, where we are sort of mandating or requiring a lot of our employees who are customer facing, who are in technical roles, to actually be certified in certain areas, right? So we have a good mapping of the role that they're in the field to specific certifications that they need to attain within that fiscal year, our fiscal year. So that's the Technical Skills Initiative program, and we are driving certifications across our employee base to make sure Microsoft employees are certified in these areas that they need to be certified in, or they need to understand the skills in. Similarly, when it comes to hiring decisions, that's a tough one, right? Because there are a lot of legacy certifications that are industry leading that have been used by our own hiring managers. And we are working with them to sort of make sure Microsoft certifications also get included in the job descriptions and the job requirements. I wouldn't say we are completely there yet, where every single job role requires a Microsoft certification, and it doesn't require an industry certification. There's value to industry certifications as well. So it's sort of a nice balance, a nice mix of industry certifications and Microsoft certifications that we are starting to influence and make sure our own Microsoft hiring managers have those certifications listed in the job descriptions. But it's a process. It's a thing in flight. It's not like it's done. It's a process that we are working through. But Technical Skills Initiative is a big initiative, and every year we are adding more and more folks into the TSI program, as well as requiring them to renew their certifications. Liberty talked about certification renewal. Our employees would also require to be going through the continuous learning process that she talked about for renewals and getting their certifications renewed every year. So that's also part of the requirement as part of TSI. So we are driving not just new certifications, but also renewals within our own employee base.
I love that. And our team on the learning side has all gotten certified as well. So we have definitely all taken and sat for exams, and it's a great experience for us to go through. So this next question, Liberty, is for you. And I just also want to say thank you for everyone asking questions. We are keeping up and trying to get them answered as quickly as possible. So Liberty, this one is for you. We have some questions about how we go about creating exams. This is what you live and breathe every day, Liberty. So kind of the process for creating exams. And then could you also touch on, the beta exam process too? Because I know there's a lot of questions about that as well.
Sure. So this is what I do. It all starts with a job task analysis where we really try to understand what's involved to be successful in the job role. Once we have that, we actually use that as the basis for the learning that we create and then the exam. Because it does cover kind of the universe of skills that people need to be successful in the job role, we can't test on everything. So we have to pick the most important things we want to test on. And we do that through what we call an OD session. So once we have the objective domain, OD, created, that's the list of skills that we're going to include on the exam. We blueprint that, which means we ask subject matter experts to tell us how important and how often they complete each of those tasks. And I use that to decide how many questions we're going to write to each of those content areas. So if something's really important or done a lot, we're going to write more questions to it than something that's not done very often or isn't as important. And then we have subject matter experts write the questions. Because item writing is such a difficult task, the items then go through multiple levels of review. So once an item is written, it's reviewed by another set of subject matter experts. So the person who wrote the item can't review their own item. Other subject matter experts look at it, and then we put it into beta, because no matter how perfect an item seems on surface, there's inevitably some items that just don't work when we put them on an exam, and none of us know why. It just is the nature of the beast. So that's why we put it through the beta exam. And that's where we have people come in and take the exam in an exam-like, take the questions in an exam-like situation, because we know that changes the dynamics of how the items work. And you all leave a footprint when you take an exam that tells me a bunch of information about the quality of the questions. Is it too easy? Is it too hard? Does it differentiate between high and low performers? And I also give you an opportunity to provide comments. So I actually read every single beta comment, and using that plus the psychometric data, we make a decision about whether we're going to keep an item, we're going to kill an item, or if I'm going to talk to subject matter experts to learn more about what's going on because it's unclear. A lot of times the comments help me figure out what's wrong with an item and we can fix it. Sometimes the items help me figure out what's wrong with an item and we can't fix it. And then those items are removed from the beta exam. And so that's why you don't get scored right away, because we don't want you to be scored on a question that we're not going to keep or that changes. So we make sure that you get scored on only those questions that we're going to have on the live exam. So that's why it takes about 10 business days after the exam goes live or is publicly available before you'll see your score. To participate in the beta exams, there's a couple different ways. Follow the blog, because I always post the beta codes to the blog. That beta code will give you 80% off of the exam. And if you show up and take it, you'll get 25% off your next exam. And then you can also join our SME database, which is a way for us to indicate that you're interested in the beta exam, for example, and what your skills are. And then if you match the skill set that we need for beta exam, you will get a separate invitation to potentially participate. All of these, though, are limited on first come, first served basis. So if you see these things and you want to participate, sign up soon, because some of these go very, very quickly.
Perfect. Thanks, Liberty. And we will make sure that our moderators post where you can actually sign up for that SME database in the Q&A, so you all can go ahead and do that. And then an additional plug, if you check out the Microsoft Learn blog, we post every beta exam that's coming out. You can subscribe to a beta exam label specifically so that you get notified when those blogs are coming out, so that you can keep ahead of and be the first to know when we're rolling out new beta exams. And we make sure to post all new exams that are coming out in the beta process on our Microsoft Learn blog. Okay, this next question, thank you, Liberty. That was a really long answer, very detailed. Thank you for that. This next question. This next question is going to be for Sudarshan. So, Sudarshan, we have a fair amount of our attendees who have certified in fundamentals and are trying to figure out what their next steps are. So, once someone has been certified in fundamentals, what should they do next? And maybe are there some recommendations that you could make in some areas that are really, really popular right now?
Yeah, our most popular certification is obviously in the solution area of Azure, like apps and infrastructure and data and AI, as well as the security certifications. Those are all like really in demand. So if you are certified in fundamentals in any of those areas, if you're certified in fundamentals for Azure, for example, or data and AI, you would go in and look at all of the role-based certifications that are relevant to your job role. Because Azure Fundamentals is sort of broad, and then you can now zero in on specific job roles that you want to go specifically skilled in or validate your skills in. And so those are the ones that we should, recommend. We would recommend for you. For example, if you're working in the infrastructure space and you're managing Azure infrastructure, then Azure Admin could be a really good start for you at the next level. After you've completed your Azure fundamental certifications. Similarly, if you're in the data and AI space and you want to move up again from the fundamental level to the associate level, then to the expert level, then there's a path that you would go explore depending on what job role that you're currently in or a job role that you want to pursue, right? So you could be Azure fundamental certified, but you're maybe a student or somebody who's looking for a career switch. So you would want to first understand what is that job role that you want to target. And based on that, you can pick a certification. And before you go actually pick a certification and try to get certified, you can also explore the learning content on Microsoft Learn, right? So as soon as you're done with your fundamental certifications or you have a fundamental certifications and you know a specific job role that you want to target, you can go look at the learning content, and there is also the skills measured page that has detailed information on what that job role entails, what are all the skills that are covered, whether it's managing, operating, or designing specific solutions that you're interested in. So I would encourage you to look at all that information, the rich amount of information that's available on the Microsoft Learn pages, and then you make your decision on what specific role you want to target. And then you would go take the learning paths and complete the learning before you take your certification. And to Liberty's point, you also want to get some experience and make sure it's not just the learning, it's also the experience that matters. So if you're able to get some experience, then you would target the certification. Otherwise, I think it's also fine to do your learning in more detail, whether it's an instructor like training class or whatever else that suits you, and then go to the certification, right? So that's what I would recommend. So first get clear on what job role you want to target, and then pick the area that would target that job role, and then pursue that path.
Wonderful. Thank you for that detailed answer. We have so many questions that are coming in that we are actually going to stay on longer than our allotted time. So we're going to extend this Q&A with our experts a little bit longer for about another 10 to 15 minutes so that we can continue to answer your questions. Thank you for all the questions that are coming in, and we are doing our best to answer them as much as possible. So Liberty, this next question is for you. This is a naming question. Why did we choose to name the fundamentals exams 900? And wouldn't it make more sense if they were a lower level? Why did we make that decision? And can you explain that a little bit?
I saw that question and I thought it was a good one. So this was by design because people tend to read more into the numbers than what we ever intended. So we thought, you know what, we're going to make them 900, and then people can say, if people say, well, the numbers mean the level of the exam, we can say, fundamentals are 900. And so we actually did it by design because we're trying to indicate very clearly that the numbers are not related to the level of the exam. So people look at courses and they see 100 and they think it's entry level or lower level. And that's certainly not the case in our certification program, especially if you look at some of the stuff like modern desktop and enterprise admin, which are both 100s, but very clearly well above the entry level.
Perfect. I know I have gotten that question from people that have asked me that as well. So thank you for that explanation. Sudarshan, this one is for you. On the topic of certification renewals, we're getting a few clarifying questions that folks have on certification renewals. So how long should I start receiving renewal suggestions for my certification? This particular person did the AZ-204 in March of last year, and they're a little bit worried they wouldn't have enough time for the renewal process before the expiration. So could you maybe walk through that timeline again a little bit more? And then the other question is, if someone's not receiving their information, what should they do?
Yeah, great questions. So basically, in terms of your renewal process, the renewal eligibility, what we call the eligibility window for renewal, that opens 6 months prior to your certification expiring. So if your certification is expiring in December, then you should receive an email or a notification in your inbox 6 months prior to that, which is in June, right? So you should receive an email in June saying, you're eligible for renewal, go and take your renewal assessment. And you can take the renewal assessments anytime during that 6 month window between June and December in that example that I just gave. As long as you do it before December, your certificate and pass the assessment, your certification will be extended by a year, right? Now, the reason why some of you might not be seeing renewal notifications yet is because your certifications are now valid for 2 years, right? They were valid for 2 years. So until you hit that 18-month mark, you're not going to get your renewal notification. So that's the reason why some of you might not be receiving your renewal notifications yet. But going forward, as you know, we've changed the policy starting June that your certifications are going to be valid for a year. So at that point in time, you will start receiving notifications 6 months prior. So whether it's 2-year validity of your cert or 1-year validity of cert, your eligibility is always 6 months prior to your certification expiring. And if you don't get your emails, or if you're not checking emails from Microsoft on the certification renewal, you can always go to your certification dashboard or your Learn profile, and it'll show up there to say that whether you're eligible for renewal or not, and that would be 6 months prior to your certification expiring. So I would encourage you to go check your certification dashboard, log into your certification dashboard, check out all the certifications you have, look at the dates, when the certification is expiring, and then you should see a renew button pop next to it, like a blue renew button that you'll see that will pop next to it if your certification is due for renewal and it's 6 months prior to certification expiring. So that's when the eligibility opens.
Perfect. So even if someone didn't get the email notification, they still have the ability to renew because it's in their dashboard. That's great information. Thank you for that clarification. Liberty, this next one's for you. We have a lot of certifications that retire sometimes. So could you talk through how we retire certifications and why? And then what does it mean once something's retired? Is it still valuable? Can you kind of walk through kind of what happens once a certification retires?
Sure. So the primary reason why we retire certification is because we don't see that there is a long-lasting value in that certification anymore. Or we're making some significant change in the job role that it just makes sense to create a new certification, or it's just not psychometrically sound and we don't know what to do about it. And so we just want to not be testing people on something that really doesn't have any value in terms of validity and reliability. So those are the kind of the three big reasons why we retire certification. We always try to give you as much notice as possible, 6 months being the minimum. And then what happens though is that your certification will stay on your transcript in the active certifications for 2 years after it retires or until it expires, whichever comes first. And then it moves to certification history, because we recognize that while Microsoft is trying to stay ahead of all of the changes that are happening in organizations to support their digital transformations, there are some organizations that aren't moving that fast. And for some organizations, those certifications are still valuable. So we keep those in that active section for 2 years because we figure that's about the amount of time after Microsoft chooses to retire it, where it will largely be less valuable across organizations. So after it retires, it's still valuable as long as the organization values that skill set.
Perfect. Gotcha. Thank you. And then again, that remains on someone's transcript, so they're still able to say, you know, I achieved the certification as long as it's still valuable in the marketplace.
Yep,
that's great. Sudarshan, we have a question that's coming in about, you know, all the content that's available on Microsoft Learn. So how would you recommend someone kind of navigate what they can start to study? What's the best way for them to do that? And what are the resources that are available Microsoft Learn to do so?
Yeah, I mean, if you're interested in a certification, then there are filters available, right? When you go to Microsoft Learn, you can go to the Browse Certifications page and you can go into the certification details to look at all the skills outlined and everything. But if you're looking for learning content specific to certifications, there's a filter that you can apply. You can pick the solution area that you want. You can say certification, and you can also check fundamentals or role-based, and then it'll filter the content for you based on whatever you checked, right? So that's a good way to, I know there's a lot of content on Learn, so it's really difficult for you to figure out what is relevant to my certification that I want to pursue. So that I would recommend using the filters and then selecting whatever certifications that you're targeting for learning, and then those learning content and learning paths would show up that are relevant to whatever options you picked. So that's the best way to do it on Learn. I hope that answers the question, Allison, because want to make sure. Yeah,
I think so. One thing I would add is that every certification page and exam page shows relevant learning path content that's associated with the skills that are being measured in that exam or certification. So that's a great way to start too. Sudarshan mentioned that filter, that's definitely one way. And we're working on improving, you know, the searchability and filtering option, but you can always go to the certification page that talks about that specific certification or and its associated exam, and deep dive right into the learning path that's associated with it.
Yep.
I would add that. Liberty, this next question is for you. It's a certification renewal question. So when there is an expert level certification that has an underlying requirement, say another associate level certification, how does cert renewal come into play? Do they have to both be renewed? Do you treat each one individually? What happens when you have a requirement for certification renewal?
This is a good question, and it's a work in progress. So we haven't finalized the details of how this is going to be implemented, but our vision is that when you renew, that you would renew both of them. So you have to renew the associate and the expert to keep the expert. The challenge we have right now is some engineering work that needs to be done. So we're working on making sure all of that gets in place, but that is kind of the vision, at least to my knowledge. But you know what, I'm going to actually turn it over to Sudarshan so he can correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a work in progress and we need to learn from the market. But what we've announced when we made the announcement back in December is that the expert level certification, if you have an associate and an expert level, and if you want to renew your expert level certification, you just take the renewal for expert level and that'll renew your expert level. But if you want to also keep your associate level with it, then you have to take your associate level renewal as well. So that's what we've communicated to the market and that's the current policy. But to Liberty's point, we're still, wanting to get market feedback. If that's going to resonate with the market or not, we might make changes in the future. But the stated policy is the expert level is independent of associate level when it comes to renewal. So.
Got it. Okay, so just for my clarity, so I'm understanding because I didn't know this. So if you have an expert level, you want to renew that expert level, you're just renewing the expert level rather than
right.
You aren't also required to renew the requirements of the associate level unless you want to do so.
Correct. Exactly.
Got it. Great.
Simplify.
That's.
Thank you.
And then, a follow-up question for you, Sudarshan. We're getting a couple questions on, do we have any certifications that focus on multi-cloud integration? So do we have any kind of partnerships with other IT companies and do joint certifications on anything?
Yeah, we do. We don't have multi-cloud certifications, but we do have, if you're looking at our specialty certifications, and that's the category, right, where we have Microsoft technology stack, and on top of it, we want to apply our partner technology stacks. SAP and Azure is a great example where we have, Azure infrastructure with SAP workloads, and so we are kind of working in that domain with specialty certifications. So you'll see more of specialty certifications that we might do in the future, like Linux on Azure is one that we might do where there is other partner technologies on Microsoft technology stack. So that's what we are looking to do in terms of specialty certifications and partnering with technology companies, but we don't have any multi-cloud kind of technology certifications at this point. That's Perfect. Not something that we're looking into. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Liberty, a question for you on preparation. We've kind of talked about, Microsoft Learn in and of itself not being enough to get certified. So you have to, get trained and get experience and get certified. For people that are looking for those additional learning resources, what else do we have available outside of the self-paced learning on Microsoft Learn?
So we have instructor-led training, and we're doing, and I would say that the community is really a great option too. So if you know people who are Azure administrators and if you look at the skills measured list and you don't know how to do something, go ask somebody or even join. I think on our blog and things like that, you can find access to people who are more than willing to share how they do things. People like to talk about what they do. But if you don't even, outside of that, just take the skills measured list and practice. There's a number of opportunities in labs and things like that Microsoft gives you some access to technologies like Azure for a really low cost or even free for a period of time. So take that list and just go and practice the skills and get that experience, even if you can't do it on the job. Or if you're in a different job role, if you have access to the technology and your work experience, talk to your manager and ask them if you can take some time in using Azure and practicing those skills. So we also have all sorts of documentation on docs.microsoft.com is another great resource to figure out how to learn information that's outside of the formal learning path as well.
Perfect, thank you. And then we're going to have one more last question. This one is for Liberty. Do we have anything else that helps you prepare and practice for the exam?
Most of our certifications have practice exams. So once you've gone through, you've done the learning path or you've done ILT and you've gotten some experience, if you want to get a feel for what the questions are like on the exam, do a practice test, because they are not the exact same questions, but they're going to give you a really good feel about what to expect. And I would say that's 50% of the experience in getting ready, is just being prepared to what is this question going to look like? How complicated are them? What's a case study? And taking a practice exam gives you that insight, even though it's not the exact same set of questions. Just having that knowledge about the item types and how it all comes together in the exam is really, really helpful.
Fantastic. And just for those of you that don't know, we make sure to list if there is an associated practice test that is available. It is on the exam page. So you could scroll down to the bottom of the exam page and you can see if there's an associated practice test. And we make sure as soon as those come available, they're not available for everything, but we do make sure to post those. With that, we are out of time, even with our extensions. So I just want to thank Sudarshan and Liberty for your time and answering all the questions. And for everyone that joined us today and answering all your questions, thank you so much. It was great to have a wonderful conversation with you all. We have a few resources that we wanted to share with you, just to make sure that you know what's available. We talked a lot about Microsoft Learn. Obviously, we have a curated experience to help you navigate what to do next coming from Microsoft Build. So aka.ms/learn@build. We also have our certification overview page that gets you started on everything you need to know about certification. And then we've got our community site and the Microsoft Cloud Skills Challenge. Make sure to check that out. Again, thank you so much. It was a pleasure spending time with you today, and enjoy the rest of Build.
Thank you.